Do you know what we're here for?
The equal parts. Oh my gosh.
Illegal.
Help! Help! I'm being repressed!
That's too much, man!
Don't be creepy.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for us. China?
Immediately, if not sooner.
I cannot believe how people come for you already. I don't know if you know this.
Phrasing.
Winter is coming. Huge tiny mistake.
Not gonna do it. Wouldn't be prudent at this juncture.
It's science. Your name, please?
A fucking bitch.
body.
Jesus, I say that.
I see that you know your judo well.
Climate and everything are the same word.
You should be ashamed of yourself for having that thought.
Right now. I made a huge tiny mistake.
Consequences.
It's a great day. For being sad.
Immediately, if not sooner.
In the Ice Age, how much taxes did people pay?
Follow the rich way.
Donald Trump spent a lot of quality time with my wife.
Illegal.
You supercalifragilisticexpialidocious bitch.
This is from 12 Rules for Life.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
Rid of the Second Amendment.
Oh, it never occurred to me. Interesting. Just crazy enough to work. Yeah.
A what now?
Cow?
That's too much, man!
Arguably the greatest work of nonfiction of the 20th century.
So hot right now.
Precision of language. Please.
Well, here we are once again. Floating between that little marble called Earth and the never-ending void of this galaxy. So much to do, so little time. Suppose that means it's time for us to get right to it. Of course, as always, buckle up those seatbelts, space fams. Some turbulence is expected on this little road trip of ours. Uh-oh, my mouth is broken. It's not great. Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah. Aha! Yay. That's what it's supposed to look like. Okay. Happy holidays, everybody. As you can see, the set is covered in wintry delights. Aaron W, Schmegley, and Mozart123 in the YouTube chat. Bob Company, close north. Jerry McLean, the anti-corporatist. Sky High. BCAT. Disco Wolf. And I think that's everybody I see in the chat. Alright. I guess that means we better get right to it. Well, we're gonna start this whole stream off as we have been last couple weeks. Little Christmas cheer. Although this one's sort of like a bittersweet story, if you will. Nonetheless, let's go to LA. This story from NBC a day ago.
Well, someone tried to steal Christmas from a Downey toy drive, but the holiday spirit stepped in to save the day. NBC4's Gordon Tsukumatsu shares the story of Hood Santa and the toy maker's generous donation.
It's like Santa's workshop, except it's not at the North Pole. It's in Valencia. Stacks and stacks and stacks of toys at World Tech Toys. And the brothers who run it?
We didn't grow up with much being younger.
Vic and Kev Kuyumjian grew up in a needy family, they told us.
Hold on a second. It's lagging. I see it already lagging. I don't know why, but it's happening. Short strat isn't lagging though. Of course. Makes perfect sense. Why would both streams do the same thing? There's something else I was going to do while we were breaking here. There's something, I can't remember now. What was it? What did I need to do? There was something. I don't remember what it was, but there was a thing. I know that much. That's at 140. That's at 140. This is running 1080. I cannot remember what else. There was one other thing I was going to do just now, and I broke inside just now. I don't know what happened. God, wait a second. I'm also noticing is my mouth isn't moving when I'm talking. That's probably bad. Please hold. What is your deal, dude? This was working perfectly fine 2 seconds ago. It's very strange. Don't understand. Okay, there we go. Second time's the charm.
I made a huge, tiny mistake.
Let's give this another shot. Take two. Communities.
Well, someone tried to
LA.
steal Christmas from a Downey toy drive, but the holiday spirit stepped in to save the day. NBC4's Gordon Tsukumatsu shares the story of Hood Santa and the toy maker's generous donation.
It's like Santa.
I'm very sorry. I know everyone is stealing. We're talking about somebody stealing Christmas right now, and now I'm stealing your emotional support characters. But I'm afraid these ones were earned last stream, and therefore they're really not yours anymore. You know? Although, do you have likes yet? So few people in the chat right now. Do we have enough likes for emotional support?
Except it's not at the North Pole. It's in Valencia. Stacks and stacks and stacks of toys at World Tech Toys. And the brothers who run it?
We didn't grow up with much being younger.
Vic and Kev Kuyumjian grew up in a needy family, they told us, and remember what it's like to get just one gift, which they would have to share. So they jumped.
A friend of mine sent me the story on Instagram.
But they heard about what happened to Tito Rodriguez of Downey.
Oh, it's devastating. It's heartbreaking because we know the need is there.
Every year for the past 13, he pulls together a toy drive for his Hearts Foundation. With the nickname Hood Santa, he puts on a concert with SOS Music, asking fans to donate to his cause. Toys for kids from needy families, just like the Kuyumjian brothers were before they got into the toy business. Last weekend, someone broke into a U-Haul truck he had rented.
It was filled with toys for kids.
And did a most Grinch-like thing.
They cut the lock off of the roll-up door and they wiped out about half of the U-Haul.
Kev and Vic were so moved by Santa Hood's story that they gave him a call out of the blue. He gave them the lowdown.
He said there was hundreds of kids that were going to get those toys that people donated. Everything was stolen, so it was going to ruin all the kids' Christmas.
So today...
Oh, God. This guy seems genuinely upset about
Tito's drive. 6 pallets of toys, 1,200 items in all. Superheroes, drones, remote control cars, play sets, you name it. The Kuyumjian brothers and their staff pulling it all together to help Hood Santa save his Christmas toy drive.
Especially it's toys we design, we create, and we manufacture. So it means a lot more to us.
And it means even more to the man and his mission, making sure the other Santa has what he needs to put smiles on little faces this Saturday.
Well, there we go. These two brothers decided to save Christmas after the Grinch robbed Hood Santa, depriving hundreds of children of presents at Christmas time. Horrifying, but thankfully had a nice ending to that story. Is that a Spider-Man barbecue grill? You know, I didn't see the Spider-Man barbecue grill. I wouldn't be shocked considering some of the stuff we're seeing in this place. Honestly, I'll take a Spider-Man barbecue grill if they're giving them out. Go web go. Go go burger go. All right. Now we're going to get straight to some slightly less happy stories. Although in a way some of these are happy. It depends on how you want to interpret them, really. It's all about it's a choose your own adventure. You know, it's all about how you interpret these, really. We deserve an emotional support, do we? Okay. It's not really we. I mean, it's you, we, but not me. I'm the one saying the wrong pronoun right now. It's all of you who deserve it. What is that? What is that? Okay. Let's quickly talk once again at the beginning of another stream about the Luigi Mangione case and the state of U.S. healthcare. I guess we'll start with this horrible outlet called CNN.
Luigi Mangione is in federal, not state custody tonight, facing fresh and largely unexpected charges on top of the first and second degree state murder counts, among others. A New York grand jury has indicted him on. Perspective now from CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig, also defense attorney Danya Perry. Like Ellie, she's a former federal prosecutor. We should also note that Karen Friedman Agnifilo, the suspect's attorney, used to be affiliated with her law firm. CNN's John Miller joins us too, as does New York City Judge George Grasso. Good to have you all on. John, I want to begin with you because you're learning new details about this tug of war to some degree between federal and state prosecutors.
Well,
By the way, this 10-minute CNN piece is basically CNN's attempt to get as many pundits at one time here to tell us just how guilty Luigi Mangione is, just how wrong he was for what he did, how bad we are for having any semblance of respect or whatever of non-negative feelings you might have for Luigi.
Right, and what we've been following today, and really since last night, is kind of a tug of war between the United States Attorney, the federal prosecutor in Manhattan, the place where Ellie Honig used to work, and the Manhattan District Attorney. So this morning they were set up with barricades in front of 100 Center Street, the state courthouse. The judge was up on the 13th floor arranging where a camera would be to shoot the arraignment. There was a special arrangement made to book the prisoner in the district attorney's office, and by mid-morning they found out he wasn't coming to be arraigned in state court by the district attorney on an indictment of felony murder charges, including murder in the first degree. Instead, he was taken into custody by the NYPD, handed over to the FBI, and he was going to federal court. And this was hastily arranged, caused a lot of confusion. But what you're not seeing, and this is important to note, is, and we've kind of seen this before in other cases, any kind of battle between the FBI and the NYPD on who gets the arrest.
Right.
What you're seeing is federal prosecutors going for a jump ball on this case. The federal prosecutors using kind of a unique charge to go after a murder, which is usually a state charge. And interestingly, the state...
CNN is so excited that he's being charged with terrorism. Like, that's basically what they're talking about right now when they're talking about the federal charge. CNN seems to be genuinely thrilled, excited, just unrelentingly just happy about this. They're like, yes, he does deserve terrorism because us CNN contributors are in fact terrified. I haven't checked in with anybody else to see if, regular human beings are terrified, but we are terrified. Can't you see it on what's this? I almost wanted to call him Jake Tapper, but no, he's a Jake Tapper clone. What is this guy's name? Oh, I can't think of it now. Jake, we'll just call him Jake 2. Jake 2. Look at Jake 2's face right now. He looks uncomfortable, more uncomfortable than usual about this whole thing. He seems, I don't know, off, but he's been making just as much as that healthcare CEO every year. So I feel like he's sort of in the club,
Prosecutors using what is usually a federal charge, terrorism.
Yeah, notable. Okay,
very
Danya,
notable.
You're a criminal defense attorney.
Jerk Tapper.
It struck me, as Shimon noted there, that we heard something of a potential line of argument from Mangione's defense attorney, noting the differences between these two cases, the New York State charges with a terrorism enhancement for causing fear or attempting to strike fear among the population.
Yes,
and the
population
one had a stalking element to that. I wonder.
I love that. The population is terrified. Oh, God. Yes, Jake, too. The population, and by population, you mean this very specific CNN panel that you've you sort of accrued here, brought together of this, what appears to be a tailored suit club? Am I wrong on that? Does it not feel like everybody here on this panel is wearing a tailored suit?
As a defense attorney, do you see an opening there for the defense to say, hey, these two are somehow conflicting?
I'd like to say that I do as a defense attorney.
I mean,
and as a former.
I mean, look, Jake too over here. He's even got a pocket square. I mean, my God, so fancy.
I'd like to say that I do as a defense attorney, and as a former colleague and friend of Karen Agnifalo's. But there's no tension really to exploit at all. The federal and the state charges can be largely overlapping. They could really actually be the same because they're two different sovereigns. They could be wildly different, and there's no basis, there's no defense or legal argument that I could think of. So analytically, it's kind of interesting, and
there's no
and
defense
that's true. And what was just said is also true. That typically the terrorism charge is a federal one, and stalking is a state one.
There's definitely it's shocking. Like, if she's a lawyer, and I don't know anything about this woman speaking right now, aside from the fact that she seems to live in some sort of a beige hellscape, tailored by Fendi or something like that. I can't quite tell. Maybe Givenchy. It's unclear. Point is if she's a lawyer, I find it shocking she's utterly incapable of finding any defenses for any of these things, especially the terrorism charge, considering that there was specific verbiage used in the shooters and Luigi's manifesto, speaking specifically to the avoidance of civilian casualties, the very specificity of this attack. I mean, it's very strange that she's somehow just incapable of finding how any defense, as a supposed former lawyer.
Right now, as you said, I think I was doing a podcast with Karen by mid-morning. She still thought she was going to arraignment in state court. And so there's a...
Now, I've already said it. I stand by it. I said it yesterday, I think. Ever since the terrorism charge came out, I'm going to stick by this. I think they're going to drop the terrorism charge. When they come to the conclusion, I think it will be probably mid-trial. At some point here, they're gonna realize that we're not gonna be able to make that charge stick, and if he gets acquitted on that, it's gonna look real bad for us. If we accuse somebody of terrorism and we lose on that, it's gonna look worse than us just dropping the charge, right? In purely a PR perspective from the DA. Right, it is my belief that the DA will drop that charge. I stand by it. We'll see how it goes over the next whatever months.
Up in the air and a lot of unknowns, but I think that one was just almost more comparing and contrasting the two charging instruments and saying, that's interesting, but of no moment legally.
Ellie, some have raised questions about the risk, given the enormous and somewhat shocking outpouring of support for Mangione in the wake of
it's so shocking. Shocking. Murder. Listen to Jake too over here. He's so utterly shocked. Weeks in now, he still can't wrap his mind around it. It's probably because he's too busy chortling.
Of support for Mangione in the wake of this horrible cold-blooded murder, concern about jury nullification in this, in which case a jury might say, yeah, the evidence points towards conviction, but we're still not going to convict him. What is your level of concern about that as a possibility?
Well, Jim, I was always worried about jury nullification, even in the most routine cases I handled as a prosecutor. All it takes is one juror and you have a hung jury. So it's always the kind of thing that keeps prosecutors up at night. And yes, the risk here absolutely is elevated. I've never seen an outpouring of affection and support for a defendant charged with a vicious murder like we have in this case. However, I want to say a couple things. One, the jury selection process is really effective. Not perfect, but really effective at weeding out people who were biased. We saw it in the Trump trial. We saw half of the jury just got up and walked out because they felt they were too biased. The other thing is, it's one thing to pop off on social media, to post a meme or something. It's another thing to sit through weeks of evidence about someone who shot someone.
I love that. He thinks that people are just going to self-select themselves right out of there. We're all too biased on this. We're just all going to leave. They'll be left with 12 people who are purely about the law. That's what's going to happen. I'm sure nobody will have any sort of any motive to stick around, even if they genuinely believe this man to be innocent. Hey, it's fine. You don't have to agree with my estimation here. And honestly, I kind of hope that they don't drop this charge, because when he is acquitted of terrorism, because I don't see how it's possible that they could ever make that land here, it's going to bring the whole idea of terrorism, how the United States plays around with it to meet particular, really, I think, narrative concerns more than anything else. I think it will, in fact, open up that discussion in a way that will be fascinating if we get there somehow. I still think it'd be silly for them to do it. I don't see how they're going to make this happen. I don't see how this guy believes that all of the people in the jury pool are just going to walk out because they're too biased. I think that's a fascinating fascinating assertion. I disagree. I disagree strongly.
To get a jury instruction from a judge like Judge Grasso, who tells you your job is to apply the law and then to nullify. So yes, you have to be aware of it, but there are important systemic controls here against it.
Yeah, and listen, every time that video comes up, as we just showed it there, it's and the planning that went into it, and what we're learning about his manifesto, saying, right, this will tick a lot of boxes, and to whack an insurance executive. I mean, it speaks to planning.
To whack an insurance, he's making him sound like a mobster, like a mobster hitman, paid to do the dirty work of shady capitalist interests. Oh, Jake, too.
So I want to play a clip of something that Karen Friedman Agnifilo said on this program last week about Mangione's possible defense, another potential line of defense. I should note this was before she was announced as his attorney. Have a listen.
The evidence is going to be so overwhelming that he did what he did. And I hear what you're saying about being radicalized. I hear what you guys are saying. But as a former prosecutor in that office, I would be concerned that you have someone who is a valedictorian of his class. He was brilliant his whole life. He comes from this great family. I mean, something changed, right? Significantly, something changed. And they're going to, I think, potentially have a not guilty by reason of insanity potential defense.
She's now his lawyer, George Grasso. Do you see that as a potential line of defense?
Well, I know Karen well and I respect her, but frankly, I don't see it here. And the reason I don't see it is because there's so much publicly available information. Like, for example, I read the federal complaint today and a lot of other data. This is a very careful and methodically planned event. Remarkable.
Right. You can't be insane and also plan. It's impossible. It's physically, mentally impossible to have something like be going through a mental health situation. Right. And also plan. You can't do it. Okay? Essentially, if you're having a mental health situation, you are a functional what's the word? You're functionally stupid, right? You're incapable of doing anything of any intelligence. Actually, your IQ goes down 17 standard deviations, and you're lucky to be able to breathe in and out of your own volition. That's just how that works. This guy is, in fact, a mental health professional, of course. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. No, this is actually George Grasso, a Bloomberg-appointed judge. This guy was appointed by Mike Bloomberg.
And credit to the NYPD is they were able to put in hundreds, if not thousands of hours to make an almost reverse documentary of the actions of this individual. So to show
what's a reverse documentary?
To the level that he would be excused criminally, I think is a long shot.
I know what a documentary is, but what is a reverse documentary?
Insanity to the level that he would be excused criminally, I think is a long shot. I also think it's really bad news for Luigi Mangione and good news for the rule of law, the action that the federal government took today, because that brings this case to a whole nother level, because the murder charge involves there, people aren't really talking about
you hear
too
him?
much. Involves the
You hear this guy? Do you hear him? He's so excited about the federal murder terrorism charge because it means that it involves the death penalty. He's thrilled.
Murder charge involves there. People aren't really talking about that too much. Involves the.
I'm shocked to hear that a judge appointed by billionaire Mike Bloomberg would be thrilled about somebody who killed a billionaire or multi-millionaire CEO in cold blood. I'm shocked that he would be thrilled about this. Makes no sense. Oh wait, I'm sorry. It makes all of the sense.
Because the murder charge involves there. People aren't really talking about that too much. Involves the death penalty is not available in the state of New York. And it also involves a methodology of, using.
You can't give a guy the death penalty in New York. That's why you need this this federal murder charge so we can kill this guy. That's what this guy is literally saying on CNN. I love this. You remember when? I love how people claim CNN is a left network when it really, truly is not. It really isn't. They have guys on like this to talk about how great it is that somebody's getting a federal murder charge that has the death penalty attached. That's leftism for you people.
The stalking laws to weave in murder, I think, is pretty much right down the middle of the plate based on the evidence as we have now. On the other hand, Alvin Bragg, who will have to take a back seat here. He can talk all he wants and give press conferences that they're going to move on parallel tracks. They're not going to move on parallel tracks. The federal government is going to dictate the pace. And Bragg, I think he made the right move using terrorism to get to murder one, but that's kind of untested at this level. And if he got a conviction, would certainly go to the Court of Appeals. So for a lot of reasons, it makes perfect sense for the rule of law, for the federal government to go first, use all their leverage that they have with this being a death penalty case. Bragg takes a back seat. We see what happens there. And ultimately, we have justice. And anyone who thinks Mangione is a hero really needs a psychiatrist.
Wow.
I can't find anything heroic.
Yeah. Jake too agrees. These guys, all medical professionals, they agree. Oh wait, no, none of these people are medical professionals, and they can't assess whether anybody needs a psychiatrist. And Jake too, aka Jim's Scioto or whatever his name is, and Mr. Grasso here, incredibly wealthy men who have, essentially even more wealthy men who have been their bosses over the years. Incredibly, I'm glad that they're here to tell us that anybody who thinks of Luigi as a hero, somebody who would, as he said, shoot somebody in the back in cold blood, needs a psychiatrist. What's this? An excerpt from Robin Hood? Treasure heist scene. 4 of 10. Usually Robin Hood is painted in a particularly positive, you might even say heroic light. So you'd say, I guess you might say society in general has for a long time seen even less justifiable things perhaps as potentially heroic. Just saying. So I guess all of society needs to go to a psychiatrist. Or maybe just those 2 idiot pundits on CNN. Maybe have a, sort of like a more of a realistic assessment on things, rather than doing it from their little ivory towers. You thought you were watching an ad for a new Assassin's Creed. It does. That 2018 Robin Hood does give off big Assassin's Creed vibes. It's true.
This news is funded by viewers like you. Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Luigi Mangione, the suspect in the shooting death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, appeared in a federal court here in New York Thursday after being extradited from Pennsylvania, where he was arrested. Prior to the court appearance, Mangione was seen in Lower Manhattan being escorted from a helicopter by the FBI, by the New York Police Department, and New York Mayor Eric Adams. He's been charged with first-degree murder, second-degree murder as an act of terrorism for fatally shooting Thompson on the morning of December 4th as the CEO was walking to United Health's annual investor conference. A newly filed federal
Love how they have an
complaint
entire
has revealed
battalion
new details about a
of police
notebook
officers to
Mangione
walk
had
this guy
at the
at
time of his arrest.
about
According
the
to
pace
authorities, it, quote, contains several
of somebody walking
handwritten
through the park,
pages that express hostility toward the health
like on a
insurance
nice Sunday
industry and wealthy
afternoon.
executives in particular. In a separate manifesto, Luigi Mangione
Just sort of
wrote,
strolling,
quote, these
meandering
simply
even.
had it coming. A reminder, the U.S. has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly 42 in life expectancy.
I thought it was 48. Well, it is
According to
48, actually.
investigators,
But
Mangione had written the words deny, defend, and depose on the bullet casings used in the assassination. The killing of the United Healthcare CEO has brought renewed attention to the practices of the health insurance industry, and especially United Health Group, which made $22 billion in profits last year. We're joined now by two guests here in New York. Elizabeth Benjamin is with us. She is Vice President of Health Initiatives at the Community Service Society of New York. She's co-founder of Healthcare for All New York campaign. And Kevin Dwyer is with us. He's a cystic fibrosis patient who's written about his battle with United Healthcare after he was denied life-saving medicine. You're a family of 7 kids?
Yes, correct.
4 of you have cystic fibrosis,
Correct,
Kevin?
yes.
So talk about what happened to you.
Well, in 2012, there was a new medication that came onto the market called Kalydeco. It was a game-changing medication for cystic fibrosis patients. It, instead of just treating the symptoms of the disease, which is previously that's all we had, it actually started to work at the root cause of cystic fibrosis and the defective gene. It was only for one specific mutation out of thousands of mutations for cystic fibrosis. I started to do research about the medication, about the specific gene, talked to my doctor. My sister then went and tried to get the medication.
And she get it?
And she got it, yes. I then went ahead with all the same information because we have the same gene, and I was denied by United Healthcare.
She also had United Healthcare.
She had United Healthcare, yes.
United Healthcare approved her prescription.
Correct. They denied her at first, and then she had to go through the appeal process. And at the appeal process, she got approved for the medication.
Well, you're looking very good now. I don't know what that means,
yes.
But so explain what happened, because you were not doing well after you were denied.
No, I was not. I was at a point in my health where it was starting to decline, and it was declining rapidly. At the time, I was probably about 30% lung capacity. You were put on a lung list to get a new lung? Yes, I was just about to be. We started having conversations about getting lung transplant, double lung transplant. So the thought of getting this medication that could stop my decline was everything to me. And it was devastating when I got the denial because my sister had just received the medication and I had used all the exact same information
fucking
that she had
used. To the same health insurance
company.
company.
Health insurance company, yes, United.
And she was doing well?
She was doing great. Her lung functions.
It's insane. It's insane. It shows you just how arbitrarily they are deciding this shit. Him and his sister have the same genetic condition, and as siblings have literally shared DNA. She was receiving a treatment from the same insurer that they were both on. That treatment was working for her, but the insurance company arbitrarily decided that he didn't need the same medication working for her. I mean, it's just so nonsensical. Oh my god.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
That's the system we have, right? Where moneyed interests play doctor without any medical training, have, complete and total control over people's health and welfare. And when it comes to medical situations, they are the arbiter as to whether or not people get treatment, as to whether or not people are, able to survive, are able to have a decent life. You know, a decision like that impacts this guy's well-being, his entire life outlook. It's insane. It's insane that they should have that much power. All right. While we are talking health stuff, we have 20 likes. Okay. Oh, you know what? I forgot about this. I forgot to add this in. Shit. I gotta line this up too. All right, before we switch over to this next story, I figured to use this as a segue out of this discussion somewhat. By the way, a spoiler alert. If you haven't seen this movie, I mean, honestly, this probably won't affect, but there is some stuff going on here. This is John Q. And this is a scene after... So yeah, here comes some spoilers. So if you don't want to hear anything about this movie, or if you haven't seen it before, I don't know, close your ears, turn down the volume. But this is after they find their son, well, not find their son, but after their son experiences a sudden health episode at a baseball Little League game. He's rushed to the hospital, and they are here forced to talk to the doctor and HMO of the hospital. Or I don't think it's technically the HMO. I think it's the what are they called? Like the administrator. Yeah, exactly. See, and this is the literal crux of the U.S. healthcare system right here. You got a woman here representing the moneyed interests of the hospital, here to tell you that you have other options. Aside from your child living, your child can actually die. And that's maybe more fiscally responsible for you. And, you know, insurance companies, hospitals who work together in this really, you know, they are the ones who are presenting a false choice. Of course, there is no real choice here. You know, anybody would essentially give up anything, I think. I don't have my own children, but from my understanding, any parent would basically give up everything and do whatever they could to keep their child alive. So suggest you have a choice between them living or dying as like some sort of binary option to consider is hilarious, as if somehow there's even a discussion to be had aside from the idea of cost. And this was what? I mean, they did some pretty good research on this thing, but this was like 20 years ago this movie came out or something. Those costs have only gone up. You know, somebody, you know, you go into that room, they're like, $1 million for that transplant. It's insane. Was it the 90s? Was it that long ago? I thought it was like 2002 or something. All right. right, now let's stay on health-related stuff, but let's talk about a different situation. Oh, it was 2002. Okay, see, there we go. All right, now I feel better. All right, I don't really feel better. I'm just glad I wasn't wrong about that one thing. Let's talk about this. You know what's exciting for me about this story we're about to talk about? Is that Donald Trump and, because of that, RFK will be the one to preside over the future of what may come of all of this, as things are getting out of hand quickly with bird flu. How great. As apparently, the U.S. has now confirmed its first severe case of bird flu, and the state of California has declared a state of emergency.
The Louisiana patient was hospitalized in critical condition, and the Centers for Disease Control believes the infection occurred after the person had contact with an infected backyard flock. The CDC says this is the first time a situation like this has happened. The virus has been circulating among dairy cattle in 16 states, in addition to poultry flocks. California declared a state of emergency as a precautionary measure to help contain the virus's spread.
The state of emergency is, in my view, emblematic of a recognition that things are getting worse and not better.
Infectious disease researcher Matthew Miller says the legislative move can help governments prepare.
It is a tool that gives the government additional powers to respond more effectively, and also leverages dedicated financial resources that can be used to support responding to the situation.
Canada's chief public health officer says milk surveillance programs have shown optimistic results, that the spread seen in the U.S. is not happening here to the same degree.
I think over 1,200 samples have been tested and they've all been negative. And they're now testing raw milk from the points of milk collection before pasteurization to test for the presence of H5, and they have not found any viral fragments in the milk.
But Dr. Teresa Tam stresses caution is key.
I think it's really important to keep up vigilance, surveillance in raw milk, commercial milk.
Yeah, so Canada isn't having quite the same problem the United States is having, thankfully for
The California
Canadians.
Department of Health sharing an update today on the state of bird flu. The disease is spreading among birds, cattle, and now there are confirmed human cases in the state. KRON 4's Rob Nesbitt joins us now live from the newsroom with what doctors are looking at now. Thanks for being here.
Justine, the bird flu is a death sentence for poultry farms that have been dealing with the spread since 2022. This year is the first time people are getting sick. Governor Gavin Newsom issued a state of emergency Wednesday because of the rapidly spreading bird flu. The virus has spread to chickens, turkeys, ducks, cattle, and now people. Dr. Erica Pond with the California Department of Public Health says the governor's order will help stop the spread.
Helps us mitigate disease in animals, protect those at risk, and ensure we continue to learn about this bird flu virus and be prepared if things change.
Dr. Pond says the risk to the public is low, but 36 Californians have tested positive for bird flu. 35 of those cases came from cattle. There has been no spread from person to person, but the state says one case in the Bay Area did not come from an animal.
The confirmed case without exposure to infected dairy cows was a child in Alameda County. The child had no known animal exposures, and the source of this case is still unknown.
Yeah, that part is still incredibly troubling, that we don't know how this kid got sick with zero exposure to any of the expected sources. It does make you think that it's possible that in some place the virus managed to transfer from human to human, potentially. It's not a given at all. The scientists still haven't decided, as you just heard. what the cause of it was. Oh god. All right. Now let's get to talking about the worker strikes, which are now happening not just at Amazon but also at Starbucks, which are going to be going on into the holidays, as management has refused to bargain with workers. Of course, Amazon, as we know, has been exposed on multiple occasions for illegally trying to influence union activity, break up unions, stop them from ever happening. And Starbucks has also, not quite as egregiously, but done similar things in the past.
Starbucks workers go on strike Friday morning in key cities around the U.S. The union, representing more than 10,000 baristas, says it's called for walkouts in Los Angeles, Chicago, and Seattle. Workers United says the action will escalate daily, potentially reaching hundreds of stores nationwide by Christmas Eve. That's unless the company finalizes a collective bargaining agreement. The union and Starbucks created a framework in February to guide such discussions. Since then, Workers United says the chain has repeatedly pledged to agree to new contracts, but failed to present serious proposals. Responding to news of the strike, Starbucks said it was ready to continue talks, but needed the union to return to the table. The company's in the middle of a turnaround effort led by new chief executive Brian Niccol. He says he wants to restore coffeehouse culture. Measures include overhauling cafes, adding more comfortable seating, and simplifying the brand's menu. Starbucks has around 11,000 company-owned stores in the U.S., employing about 200,000 workers. Earlier in the year, the firm dropped its forecast for 2025 after what Niccol...
Oh, so sad. Not the Starbucks profit forecast. Whatever will we do?
Starbucks baristas in Los Angeles, Chicago, and Seattle are on strike.
Like, I'm convinced the society would just shut down if Starbucks' profits decreased on a year-over-year basis. I'm pretty sure it would be anarchy.
Now through Christmas Eve, Workers United, which has unionized more than 500 locations in the U.S., says that they are calling out unfair labor practices and then stalled negotiations with the company. The union chose those 3 cities because they are the company's priority markets. In a statement to ABC News, Starbucks says that Workers United delegates prematurely ended the bargaining session, but it is ready to continue negotiating.
Okay.
This is breaking news from News 8.
Please hold.
Thank you all so much for joining us here.
Thank you. All right. It's awful coffee. That's fair. I mean, that's fair. It's not the best. It's not the best coffee. Although I would argue it's technically better than Dunkin'. Although America runs on Dunkin', so I mean, who am I to make these sorts of claims about coffee? But the point is, we got a system in which workers are not being respected enough, and where they are, finally deciding to fight for their rights. Unfortunately, there was something of a dry spell there for a while since sort of the early unionization efforts in this country. But it's good to see things picking up here. Now, Amazon workers have also been attempting to unionize, including third-party Amazon workers who are technically, of the gig economy, essentially doing everything you would expect an Amazon employee to do, but not actually falling under Amazon's purview intentionally so they don't have to have any liability for you or give you health care or worry about whether or not, I don't know, workplace discrimination or anything else illegal is happening. You can sort of just shift that responsibility onto someone else, and people are kind of pissed off about that. Specifically, workers at Amazon.
Half hour ahead here at noon this Thursday. I'm Brennan Summers, getting right to the breaking headlines and this strike nationwide for Amazon workers in multiple large cities. And right now, local employees and fellow labor unions are rallying together, drumming up support in gates at the plant there. They are picketing all day long. Ryan Hermanette is there, joining us live from the west side. Ryan.
Hi, Brennan. There's certainly a lot of action going on here at Manitou today here at the Amazon facility picket. People are embracing, shaking hands, and showing support and solidarity with one another, aiming to get Amazon to come to the bargaining table. Now, all of this is happening a week before Christmas, with many people expecting packages to their doorstep here in the next few days. The main union for the striking workers, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, says it's doing this to pressure Amazon for a labor agreement. Members say this would address wages, working conditions, and retirement benefits. There are 7 facilities striking in total, with many others, including the Gates one here, picketing in support. Also supporting this cause, other nearby unions, including the Rochester Building and Construction Trades Council.
As far as I'm concerned, we're trying to help these individuals. We're trying to raise their way of life for them and their families. They can support their families. They can send their kids to college with a fair wage, health care, again, and with a pension benefit, so they can retire with dignity. That's what this is all about. We're trying to help all these individuals have a better way of life.
That's solidarity right there. This guy's not benefiting one iota, technically, from all that, but he sees
with the national Amazon strike.
Clearly, him and other union workers at their union also they see the benefit more broadly, the community benefit to people being paid a reasonable wage, getting benefits, lifting all boats.
Fulfillment Center in Gates are rallying in support. The goal to get Amazon to the bargaining table for a new labor agreement.
Ryan Hermanette has that story. He joins us now in the studio with more details on what the workers hope to negotiate. Ryan.
Hi, Adam and Teresa. Good evening. The local informational picket that happened today brought together dozens of people who stood in front of the warehouse passing out flyers and talking to those passing by. It's a multifaceted effort, which the organizing union, the Teamsters, tells me has been...
I don't know why. This guy gives me serious kids show vibes. I don't know if it's the outfit or the energy, but... Like, I feel like he's about to pull out his handy-dandy notebook in a second. Oh, he's got an iPad. Never mind. Never mind. Take it back. You don't need a notebook if you got an iPad.
Solidarity is a word that I heard used a lot outside of the Manitou Amazon warehouse today, as leaders and members of many different unions in the Rochester area gathered to pressure Amazon to negotiate their labor practices.
This has been going on for almost 2 years, from what I understand. So, yeah, this is a trend that we need to break, and that's why we're demonstrating nationwide. And this is the best time to bring awareness to the public, for sure.
All right, we got more stories on this. Those are a couple of local stories in... what do they say? Gates, New York. Here's Reuters. Striking Amazon workers say the retailing giant treats employees unfairly.
We're demanding better pay, better benefits, more PTO, paid holidays, paid vacations. We're out here fighting for our rights because our job that we do is pretty hard, and we all need to come as a collective group to fight for our benefits.
We're prepared to go the distance. This is a
This appears to be in San Francisco.
Amazon that we cannot be ignored, because that is what they have been doing. We're working and doing these jobs and sacrificing our bodies, and we're not even getting a livable wage to live in the city for the city that we provide our service for.
Yeah. It's almost like Amazon doesn't care about the communities they serve. Oh boy. All right, let's go to New York.
Thousands of Amazon workers walked off the job and onto picket lines today, including in our area.
The strike is happening across the country from Maspeth, Queens, all the way west to San Francisco. And with less than a week until Christmas, Naveen Dhaliwal explains what it means for your packages.
Amazon trucks on Thursday night made their delivery rounds without a hitch as some employees picketed outside the warehouse in Maspeth, Queens.
I'm hoping for an increased pay and better benefits for me and my family.
Ariel Javier is one of hundreds joining the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, demanding more money and better working conditions.
They are doing unfair labor practices, and we can't accept that.
The Teamsters say it represents nearly 10,000 Amazon workers, and union leaders say the company refuses to negotiate.
We told them they have till the 15th after months of telling them to work with us, and they still haven't come to the table.
But Amazon says it does not recognize the union, and delivery drivers on strike are not employees.
They don't recognize the union. Of course they don't. They don't recognize the workers. If they could replace every worker with a robot, they would. Because robots can't rise up and strike the same way that the workers can. You just program the robots not to think. Of course, robots can't actually think. Point is that, they would much prefer to have robot workers than human workers because they don't have to pay benefits for robots. That's why they've been automating their workforce as much as possible over the years. That's why their workhouses are filled, even with all the workers they employ, filled with robots.
They work for third-party businesses, further saying the Teamsters have continued to mislead the public by claiming they represent Amazon employees, and they don't. Drivers say they deserve equality.
My packages say Amazon, my uniform says Amazon, and so does the truck I drive.
So how will this strike affect Amazon's business? Experts say the company has hundreds of these facilities all over the country, and they all work interconnectedly.
If something slows down one facility, other ones can take over. So initially, customers are very unlikely to notice much of anything.
For those drivers who have livelihoods to take.
So they're just planning on replacing all of these workers with workers from other locations, essentially. That's what that says to me. That Amazon is going to attempt to completely ignore the strike through the holiday, replace them with scabs from other facilities that aren't striking, and hopefully, for them, at least in their mind, be able to completely ignore demands of workers, while continuing to serve themselves and make as much money as possible. Pitting us against one another.
I now have an incredible guest. As you guys know, we have a return guest joining us via Discord, the #1 labor reporter in the nation, award-winning, celebrated, decorated journalist Alex Press is in the building, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm very honored that Alex Press is here to talk to us about the role that police play in picket lines, both historically and also right now, and how it ties back to the Amazon labor union's actions, Teamster actions being taken at this very moment. Alex Press, hello.
Hey, Hassan, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm a little tired. I got up pretty early to get to that picket line.
Yeah, lazy socialist, doesn't want to wake up early. Classic. What else is new?
It was for a good cause. I was happy to do it.
So, Alex, I'm hearing that there is a lot of labor momentum occurring right now. There's a picket line happening. There's a strike happening. Can you give us a little bit bit of detail on that? Can you give us some background on what's going on?
Yeah, so 7 different Amazon facilities have strikes right now. So the Teamsters represent I think it's 10 total, and 7 of those are now on strike. At all of these facilities, they're not the giant warehouses. Like JFK 8 is the most well-known one that went with the Teamsters after organizing as the ALU. These are smaller delivery hubs. They're called sort centers. They're usually like in the bigger cities. They're like last mile delivery. In certain ways, they're more strategic because they're those choke points that Amazon has a little more trouble getting around. They're also easier to organize because they're more like 1,000 people working there rather than like 7,000, which is what JFK 8 at Staten Island is. So workers at 7 of these facilities have organized with the Teamsters. I think it's important for people to know it's not that every worker or the majority of workers necessarily at all of these places have organized with the Teamsters. These workers are classified as third-party contractors, so they like technically work for another company, right? So you'll get an Amazon package delivered to your door, and the driver will be wearing an Amazon shirt. He'll be driving an Amazon car, maybe an Amazon branded van, but he might actually be employed by a third party that exists pretty much just to contract out to Amazon. And that's kind of the key of the argument here. It's very clear to the workers, to the Teamsters, to anybody who pays attention to this stuff, that this is a misclassification, that Amazon does this so that they don't have to deal with benefit.
And Amazon's not the only one doing this, but they are one of the biggest employers doing this. And it is insane how these tech companies have essentially been able to get away with this declassification, or misclassification of workers, right? Of employees as contractors. And for some people, that distinction doesn't mean anything. But the fact is there's a huge difference between an employee and a contractor, legally speaking. But the fact is the word contractor has been completely misused by powerful moneyed interests like Amazon, like Uber, like, you know, any of these companies that deliver stuff directly to you, that have taken over what used to be things like whatever, you know, like I guess my point is like, instead of having contractor mean something like somebody who literally works for themselves, a small business owner, which is essentially what a contractor was. It was like, you know, you got like I'm trying to think of a good example, like the best example to use here. There's like a lot of different examples of what contractors used to be before tech companies took over the classification and started bastardizing it. But it's basically small business owners, people like literally, like you think of like blue collar workers, you know, like painters, masons, plumbers, electricians, stuff like that. People who literally work for themselves, have small businesses, and who have complete control over, you know, what jobs they take, how they do those jobs. You know, all of that's completely up to them. They have their own sort of stuff to take care of, right? Expenses, all these other sorts of things. But at the end of it, they have the benefit of being a business, the benefit of all these other sorts of things. But that's that same classification essentially is being used to classify Uber drivers, to classify Instacart shoppers, to classify you know, DoorDash delivery drivers, Amazon drivers and warehouse workers, all these other sorts of things where it's very clear they have a boss. They're not businesses on their own, right? Without the existence of Uber, without the existence of Amazon, they would have no job, right? Or they would be doing something else, right? They're not advertising for themselves. They don't have websites. They don't have, you know, logos or branding, any of that kind of stuff needed to run a business, right? Point of sale systems, none of those things. But they're being classified as such. They're being treated like they're businesses. They're being treated that way so that they don't have to give those people a fair wage, because it's a negotiated contract between two business entities, essentially, right? How can there be exploitation there, right? That's basically what's happening here. It's on a mass scale across our economy. And Amazon is one of the biggest beneficiaries of this ridiculous tax loophole.
the things like workplace discrimination suits and any of the stuff that comes with being an employer. But Amazon says, no, these aren't our employees. It's not our problem. If they want to organize, we don't have to bargain with them. So the Teamsters kind of escalated by giving them a deadline to start bargaining of December 15th. Amazon is continuing to stonewall. So now the escalation is a strike. And these strikes are one's in New York City, which is where I was this morning in Queens. There's another in Illinois outside of Chicago. There's one in Atlanta. And then there's 3 in California.
So these are DSPs, right? Like delivery.
Yeah.
Okay. So it seems like there are some legal issues that the Teamsters have with DSPs. I'm looking at freightwaves.com. It says Teamsters have some legal issues to overcome after wins at Amazon and with DSPs. Big question is card check the same as a vote? Is Amazon a joint employer with delivery companies? This is, I feel like, a streamlined process of, like, I'm going to use a word here that's silly, but the gigification of every aspect of the American economy, like all aspects of labor. And what are some of these complications in terms of like having coverage and being protected by the Teamsters?
Yeah, I mean, the gigification, in part, sometimes the intention, sometimes just a happy bonus, is that it makes it harder for workers to organize, right? They have all of a sudden these legal obstacles to overcome because they're technically not employees of the person that they really, it'd be fine if they wanted to bargain with these smaller DSPs, but the DSPs have no power. They respond to Amazon's needs, right? And we've seen this again and again where DSP owners...
Exactly. If Amazon wants something one way, the DSPs, whatever, they have to abide by that, or Amazon will say that they're in breach of contract. Right? So it's clear who's in charge, right? Who this is benefiting the most. Who sets the parameters of the entire system. And yet Amazon wants to keep claiming that they're not actually employers of the very people who are wearing Amazon shirts. It's insane. It is an insane nonsense situation.
Themselves sometimes even go kind of nuclear against Amazon and say, like, hey, we're on the side with the workers, but we don't set the times, we don't set the pay scale, all these things that show that it wouldn't make any sense to bargain with them. So the big thing here is, one, there's like the legal side, which the NLRB has been making moves to say that it agrees that Amazon should have joint employer status, which would make them have to bargain with these workers. But on the flip side, there's just the kind of the worker-led strategy, which is, NLRB, all well and good, legal obstacles, great, we'll work through them in the courts. But in the meantime, you just start acting like a union. And that's kind of what the Teamsters and these workers are doing right now, is they haven't had formal NLRB elections. They're still wending their way through these court objections and these hearings. And they're just saying, whatever, we need progress now. And we're going to act like a union, and we're going to hold pickets, and we're going to keep recruiting. And that's what I was seeing all morning, was they're talking to their coworkers, many of whom were scabbing.
Yeah, and the fact is, at least as it currently stands, from what I can tell, the government is going to continue to play ball with Amazon until it becomes completely inconvenient for them to do so. Right? The fact is that Amazon is literally like $1 trillion corporation, or nearly so, and is incredibly powerful and can hold all these things over the government. And it's the workers who need to find power in this situation, because they're not gonna just roll over and say, we read Communist Manifesto and we were wrong. The workers actually are being unfairly treated, and we were sorry. Not gonna happen. It's not going to happen. They're going to continue to try making as much money as possible. And one great way for them to make money is to not pay benefits to their employees, to not pay their employees working for them a living wage, to not give them any kind of benefits, to, not give them paid time off, force them to work through Christmas or lose their jobs. They would prefer to be kings without any of the consequences. The fact is kings in history have had, they've had consequences, technically, at times, right? If you go through the history of kings, a lot of kings died on early deaths, if you will. Whether it was revolts or other kings looking for power, they were always dying before nature was going to take their lives. And so, that's one thing to think about if you're an aspiring king. Now, let's talk about our government. That government that seems to be completely unwilling to do what is necessary to help the people. Time and time again. It feels more and more like we don't have a lot of people out there standing up for us. And even the people that are supposedly there for workers, for people in need, whatever, regular people, Democrats, if you will, who claim these things, seem to have less and less of a plan. Aside from just sort of kowtowing and acquiescing to the right wing over and over again. Every time that they do anything, well, not even wrong. Every time they fail at something, they are actually, we weren't right-wing enough, blah, blah, blah. It seems to be a constant theme. Let's go here. Somebody people may be familiar with. Franny Apio, a.k.a. Wolf Klitzer.
I wanted to read y'all this article from The American Prospect. David Dayen's got a new piece out that's really good. And it's called What We Have Here is a Rudderless Ship. Thoughts on the Democratic Post-Election Drift. Now, this is all really bad news. I was like, David usually has his finger on the pulse. He's talking to elected officials. He's talking to representatives. He usually sort of understands like what the new policy shift or, emerging strategy might be from the Democrats. Apparently, there is none. So we could talk about it for a second. But when we say kissing the ring, when we say like not mounting any kind of resistance, when we say there's a crisis of legitimacy, when we say, I don't know if I can still trust the Democratic Party, I don't even know if I can ever go back to them. I don't know if they know that how serious shit has gotten. Why are they sort of kowtowing to fascism or giving RFK Jr. a win on X, Y, or Z? I don't really know if I can trust anybody. This is why. It's because behind the curtain.
Have you not heard that nickname? I'm pretty sure that's Francesca's own nickname for herself. Or at least, yeah. It's been around for a while. I mean, she has the Bituation Room with Wolf Klitzer. Of course. There's always a pun on Wolf Blitzer and the Situation Room. I thought that was readily apparent, honestly. I'm shocked that you, of all people, are not familiar with this nickname.
There's not even the Wizard of Oz. It's just fucking Toto, man. And Toto is licking his nuts. That is what is happening right now. David writes, Democrats have a plan to take on Donald Trump in 2025. Just ask them. But if you ask all of them, but you'd have to ask all of them because they all have a different plan. John Fetterman thinks Democrats should give Trump a pardon on his bullshit hush money case, bullshit in quotes, and support his executive branch nominees, even the controversial ones. Yes, John Fetterman will be independent very, very soon.
You've never heard this? See, I guess I'm old school. I've been around a long time. But that's a real thing. That's a real thing.
Jim Clyburn also favors a Trump pardon, but to create a clean slate for the future. A clean slate, just a smooth surface, almost like just like a place to put, the neck when you
frictionless
guillotine.
plane.
To wipe all the previous guillotine blood off and just come back with and I don't mean like a cool guillotine. I mean like a bad, working people lose guillotine. Many Democrats, from Adam Schiff to Ro Khanna to Bernie Sanders, are citing points of possible agreement with Trump and Shadow Vice President Elon Musk. Some are doing this to look, quote, reasonable. Others perhaps to move some discrete items forward where Trump has made rhetorical overture. Others perhaps to set up an attack later if the common ground fails to emerge. And this is sort of obviously one of the things that I'm going to ask Cenk Uygur about. I think he agrees with this. Like, I'm going to lay this trap, and then in the future, I will point out how they were never serious about this. I have my doubts about whether this advocacy, I have my doubts about just who will actually be there to turn on Trump. You're talking about a cult.
Yeah.
They don't turn on cult.
There's not going to be a lot of turning on Donald Trump, especially, on the important stuff. I think most of these senators, Congress people, they know where their bread is buttered. Even if the voters voted them in, they'll vote them right out. I mean, we already saw it technically to some degree in different places, like Wyoming with Liz Cheney. Trying to think of some of the other examples. But the point is that some people have lost their seats for going against Donald Trump. It's a real thing, once again. But the fact is this analogy of a rudderless ship really does resonate with me, with what I've been thinking about the situation ever since the floundering failed performance in this 2024 election. It really leaves me personally with not just a bad taste in my mouth, but with so many questions as to the direction of this fucking party. It feels like a rudderless ship. It feels like we have no direction. In fact, if I were to be forced to name a direction we're heading in, it would be to the right. The direction the Democratic Party seems to be heading in is to the right. They seem to be acquiescing to all of the right-wing talking points, bringing out people like Liz Cheney on the trail, Mark Cuban, billionaires, all these sorts of people that the left is supposed to have genuine issues with are now the people that are embracing the ideas that are being touted by different people. What was his name? That one Connecticut congressman who came out right after this election to tell us that actually, it's just, we've seen so many of them at this point. It's just fucking annoying to even have to go one by one down these lists. But, it really has come to a head, in my opinion, where Democrats have to clarify what the direction is, or there needs to be a huge shift. And the problem that I see in even this line of thinking that I'm going down is that I don't actually have a plan. That's the biggest problem right now that I see in this conversation. Something that I keep talking about, sort of have been talking about for like 2 months now, ever since the election came down the way it did. Is that I feel like a lot of people are dissatisfied with what's going on. It's clear that the American people are dissatisfied with what the Democrats are presenting. They don't seem to have a clear focus on it, but we don't have a third party option that makes any sense. That I think presents an actual way forward right now, and that's the problem, right? A genuine, departure from both parties, that's inclusive, that's got the right message. All of that doesn't exist. And I keep having daydreams about different YouTubers starting their own party, the bread party. I don't know, but I'm not prepared to go to be going out for election. And I don't see a lot of YouTubers preparing themselves for election. I mean, we saw Cenk Uygur try, but I mean, well, he was just ran as an independent, didn't even try and start a new party. The only person that I can think of that really tried to start a new party recently was Andrew Yang, but of course that wasn't really an alternative to it was in a way his moving forward party is just a different version of neoliberalism. It's like, do you like Democrats, but you were hoping for just a slightly just a more technocratic message, check us out. It's like, we need an actual third option. It feels like more and more. And for a long time, I've been essentially okay with the binary nature, I guess, of our politics, or at least willing to play ball with the, what's the phrase? The lesser of two evils when it comes down to these elections, but with, the sort of timelines we have, climate change, inequality, healthcare, and not just healthcare like we've been talking about lately, but also, women's reproductive rights, healthcare for on that level as well. I mean, all these things that are so important that have really timelines, right? Different ways of looking at it. But like, for instance, like with the climate, of course, there's a literal timeline for warming, and then there's separate timelines for different people depending on where you're living geographically. And then, of course, there's timelines for people based upon their healthcare situations and all these other sorts of things, right? That are just being sort of pushed aside the longer we go down this path of enshittification. But I just don't see the bread party forming right now, so I just don't even know what we do aside from, like, I don't know, just go out into the streets and start demanding that Democrats actually be leftists. Like, in mass. General strike. Hey, thank you for the super sticker, Charlie. That is a beautiful dancing lemon. I can almost hear the music playing in the background. All right, let's keep talking about Democrats and go to this big interview. Hold on, wait a second. I gotta pause. This is huge news. Whoa, hold on. I think this might be the second time ever, but it's still big news. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez made a special appearance on YouTube, a channel you might be familiar with.
Sam Cedar, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Joining us now, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So I'm going to start off with let's talk about what's going on, obviously, right now. At any moment, you could be called to the floor for a vote. And there's some indication of what it may be. They're now talking about splitting it up into 3 different bills. But just give us your sense of what's going on here, because it feels like 5 days ago, nobody predicted there'd be an issue with this.
We were totally fine. Democrats and Republicans had come to a compromise, CR, just government funding bill. And it's actually funny. It kind of came down to literally maybe like a 3-hour window where the schedule in the House, there was 2 vote series. We're supposed to vote at 1:30 and then again vote at 4:30. And so they were going to put this government spending bill that everyone had agreed to on. There's some talk about putting it through at 1:30. Mike Johnson says, you know what, let's just do it at 4. And in that 3-hour window, Elon Musk tweeted. And
yep,
it died.
King Elon.
And then you have Trump threatening, and basically Trump threatened to primary any Republican that voted for a clean CR. And then Elon tweeted that he was threatening to primary anyone that voted for the compromise CR. And Republicans are in this moment where they don't know who their daddy is right now. And so they are just running around like chickens with their head cut off. And so we're literally in this holding pattern because of this. And it's like this recursive loop that is just shut down the government literally out of nowhere because of a tweet. It's actually insane. Like, it's actually insane.
I was a product of divorce, so I can understand what happens when mommy and daddy
Sam is a
fight, and
product.
you don't know which side to land on. But putting that aside for a moment, one question I have that does not feel like it's going to be addressed whatsoever is the $20 billion for the IRS. This was in the last budget. It was a clawback by the Republicans. But if it's a continuing resolution, it could happen again.
So Nightbot is not working right now. I don't know what's going on with it. I'm going to try and look into it right now while we're doing this interview. Hopefully I'll come to some sort of conclusion on what's happening. But yeah, for the last 24 hours, it has not been functioning properly.
Sort of as just sort of like, I guess, inertia. What is anybody talking about that at all?
Well, I think that this is the core problem that they're in right now, which is that, of course, they need Democratic votes to pass this thing. This conference cannot keep themselves together. And so they keep trying to, but they can't. They're too much at war with themselves. And so it is something that is a priority for us. And it's not something that I think has been left aside or forgotten. This is going to be a big battle, though. And it's not going to be the last time we see this come up.
Right.
Because the Trump tax cuts are expiring next year. And this is actually what this fight is actually all about. This is why Elon is involved in this right now, because he's not tweeting this out of nowhere. He's not coming at this out of nowhere. They are trying to lift the debt limit now because reauthorizing the Trump tax cuts next year are going to explode our federal debt. It's going to explode our deficit again. And they don't want to lift the debt limit then to do that. They want to lift it now. That's why
that'll draw too much attention to what their tax cuts are doing. And this way, if they split it up, it's less of a story.
And that's why Elon's getting involved. His net worth I believe it's almost doubled since the election.
It's disgusting.
Or it's like, this is what was kind of being discussed a little bit among Democratic talkers. Like, they're talking about changes to Elon's net worth since the election. He is trying to further explode his net worth. And he is trying to leverage everything from income from federal contracts to reducing his own personal expenditures and reducing his taxes. And this is something that we are, this is what this is about for him. Trump has a different set of priorities for himself. He's trying to, line his own pockets and figure out his own political preservation in this moment. And sometimes those things are aligned and sometimes they're not. And I think right now we're in one of those friction points.
It's sort of the definition of an oligarchy where even though these guys aren't these, I mean, even though Trump's not even in office yet, his like billionaire
mob
daddy,
enforcer, basically,
is like controlling whether the government will stay open or not. But let's leave this for a moment because this is an ongoing story. We're going to find out maybe how this is resolved at least for the next 3 weeks or 2 months. We'll find that out in a moment. But I want to turn to what's been going on this week in terms of your attempt to chair the government oversight committee. And my daughter had a question that sort of dovetails into this. So I told her I would ask this question. She wants to know, and I think sort of these two questions sort of address that whole dynamic. One is if you feel abandoned by the Democratic Party, and how so if you do. But also, she wants to know, how do you grapple with having to appeal to multiple different ideological groups within the Democratic Party and your constituency?
Yeah, well, two really good questions. The first one is that I don't really feel abandoned by the Democratic Party because my primary relationship that I care about the most is mass movements and mass movement politics. And part of my job and my role exists forever in this tension point between mass movements and everyday people and the establishment of the Democratic Party. And so that is always like, as long as I exist as a person, I am going to be in this waypoint between these two forces. And what I'm always trying to do is open the windows of possibility for people in the Democratic Party. And so I don't feel abandoned because my job is not to try to gain personal acceptance. My job is to try to build power for the working class. And so I feel like you have to know when to select your battles and when to force the question. And I ran to win. I always run to win. I don't pick fights that I think are losing from the jump, even if they are long shots. But I also felt like this was a win-win situation. And I felt like it was win-win because you win it in a literal sense. We're able to wield this seat. And I think I genuinely ran because I thought it was what was best for the party. And I think it was what was best for the country. And I think it was what was best for people. And that's why I did it. But I also think that it is clarifying. And sometimes when you force this question, it allows us to take measurements about where we are at. And not in a binary perspective, not just in a binary perspective either. It's not just that we won or that we lost. But even in losing, I don't think anybody in the party thought that it would be this close at the start. This is a race among, by definition, Democratic insiders, only among other members of Congress. And this is typically an environment where people like us get crushed. And the fact that it was this close, the fact that some...
Now, one thing that Alexandria said here that really stuck in my brain is her suggestion that she is actually essentially not just a product of, but like sort of woven into the fabric of political social movements, which I don't disagree with. It just sort of stuck with me, and it made me think about what that means, right? Which is why I'm suggesting to you, and I was suggesting just before we started talking about this interview, at least, that to some degree, the only alternative to a third party is for us to pressure Democrats, right? To create a social movement, to do things like, I don't know, like general strike as leftists, right? To demand that they actually serve the opposite of Republicans, not just be Republican light, not to be continuing to feed the sort of capital interests and all these other things, and actually try and get stuff done for the people. And that it's not, I mean, of course, it's Alexandria. It's her job to be out there doing what she can, but it's not solely incumbent on her to make this stuff happen. In fact, some of that does rely on us. And some of that relies on us, pressuring people other than her to do what they're supposed to be doing, what they tout themselves as to be. And if they're not willing to get them the fuck out. To turn up the heat.
Of the most, established and powerful elements of the party had to mobilize to make, to make this result, happen. That we, people were hot on their heels, I think is a very good sign for us. And so that's the first question, which leads to the second question, right. Is that in order for us to win, we need to win along several dimensions. And we need to know how to bring people together and cleave people together in kind of different dimensions in addition to an ideological one. If it's forever just progressives versus the establishment, and that's the only frame, then we are outnumbered. But if we can take that, preserve it, we're not abandoning it, but you add generational dimensions, you add class dimensions, you add some of these other things. This is an exercise in coalition building while preserving the integrity of our positions. And I think this was one of our first big swings at it. And I think as far as that goes, there was a lot of really interesting successes in that. This was not.
So that you mean if we were to look at the votes that you got maybe on the steering committee, and if we were to look at the votes that you got on the floor, we would see you could have obviously progressives voted for you, but then maybe there are younger people who have a different idea of what partisanship looks like. I mean, I think that is a big part of the generational changes. And there may be also some people who run to the progressive positions on economics, but maybe not on immigration, or maybe not on, picket, essentially. Or, I mean, because frankly, there are votes that I know that my daughter and I have talked about, and that we've talked about here, that you've taken that we're not excited about, to say the least. The anti-Semitism one in the most recent. But this is part, or you tell me, is this part of like the idea of there are certain battles where you think are maybe less consequential in the long term that you will sacrifice to build these coalitions for the long term?
I think that we are presently in a moment where we have to be really ruthless about what battles we pick, and we cannot pick all of them. And I think we have to be realistic about the political moment that we are in. There are moments where we have the juice to be bullish, and then there are moments where we need to like really strengthen foundationally and preserve. This was a tough year for us. And it's not just about big money. It's about like organizationally on the left, we are in a challenging time.
I feel like honestly, I feel like to some degree, the reason why the left this election cycle struggled to organize was because of what the current administration is doing in Palestine, and then essentially, and with Israel, and then essentially the sort of entire Democratic Party just sort of repeating everything that the administration was saying on this topic, and acquiescing, kowtowing, or if anything, truly, they were really more than that. They were readily and prepared to support all of it. I think that has hugely affected the left's ability to organize, because it fractures people, right? Sure, there may be some people on the left technically who don't see problems with that, but then there's a huge portion of people who do, and so of course that causes huge gaping fissures in the base, in the party, of people who are needed to do all that organizing. And I was hoping that with a new administration we'd have a chance here to, but now it's like go back to that Dayan, go talking about what Francesca was talking about with that Dayan piece on the rudderless ship, as that to me is where we're at now, because we're the administration that many of us are frustrated with is leaving, but now it's being replaced with a Republican administration, one that we are all very well familiar with. We have a lot of animus towards, of course, and Rightly so. But the problem is we don't have it feels like we almost don't have a ship at all, right? Or like the sails have been burnt or taken down. And it's like, what is the name of this ship? Where it's headed? Who is in charge of it? What is the forward-looking strategy here?
Like, just everything that has gone on over the last year, there's a genocide that is happening, and this is rightfully been a focus of so much organizing, and it's also caused a lot of not just internal, I think, questioning, assessment, how we do things on the left, but it's also been a moment where we've had tons of dark money, not just, yes, APAC, also crypto, also Wall Street, all these folks that are constantly waiting to pick us off. And so, I think that for this purpose, when we make sure that we fight like hell on the material things, like I vote consistently on withholding weapons, withholding funding for offensive weapons. When it comes to some of like the finer, second and third degree connections on condemning anti-Semitism, if IHRA came explicitly to the floor, I would not vote to ratify it. But I think that we need to be very strategic. We cannot swing at every single pitch because we have to build. And so I do think, for example, internally, one of my big cases about in gaining support, and what is interesting is that the support that we got in this, it was not just like the Progressive Caucus plus the Hispanic Caucus, which were the two caucuses that endorsed me in this fight. We had swing district Democrats that supported me in this. We had New Dems, which is a
Pat Ryan, I think, was one of the most successful of the swing, sort of the purple districts, as it were. And he, I think, spoke
on your behalf, right?
Yes, yeah. And he outran Kamala Harris by the largest margin of any House Democrat. And so one of the things the case that I was making to the caucus is that I can message on an economically populist message. And that is my intention. Of course, we are going to fight on civil rights. We're going to fight on human dignity. We're not going to let Democrats abandon our trans community. We're not going to allow Democrats to try to run skittish on civil and human rights issues. But the selling point, the most alluring point to bring the party together and to bring them over, we have to make a case of persuasion, which is that there is no other place where we are seeing promise to win back the working class, to win back Latinos, to win back young people than right here. And the message that we can send as a party that has been really kind of cemented in this election by Trump, that Democrats are the party of the elite, which bore out in an electorate in terms of what got hemorrhaged. That the way that we counter that is a populist economic message, which in a progressive frame has the benefit of a multiracial democracy, and that is attenuated with that.
Right. And part of why, I was excited about the prospect of you winning that position to be a top Democrat on oversight was because of the fact that you could communicate that kind of thing with a really large megaphone. And I think part of maybe I saw what you did with your followers after the election, some of the voters who voted for you and Trump. Mm-hmm. And, Trump's style of tweeting or truthing or whatever, he's lying all the time, but it at least simulates a level of responsiveness to the public. Yes. So my question is just do you think that the Democrats' message on Trump's threat to democracy was undercut by the fact that an overwhelming number of Americans thought that Biden was too old to run for a second term, and yet there was no real primary process anyway? So I guess in other words, do you think that the Democrats need to build back more trust and legitimacy with their base, democratic legitimacy, by showing more responsiveness?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a big part of what our case was as well. You know, I think it's interesting because a lot of people kind of talk about the gerontocracy of the Democratic Party and the way that a lot of these decisions are decided by seniority. And all of those things are true. But what is also attenuated with that is the fact that it is really hard for a lot of, I think, Democrats to wrap their head around the current media environment that we are in. And there's still like this really big attachment to the idea that CNN, MSNBC, the op-ed, you know.
But I think that speaks to what she was talking about before, right? In terms of the, you know, the gerontocracy. I mean, I think generally speaking, older people are still doing that. They're still going, especially the DC elite sort of crowd, are still going to places like MSNBC and CNN to get a sense of how things are on the ground with people, and it's just not. It's just completely nonsensical, right? And you know, if you want to know what's actually going on, you have to go. You have to go online. You have to go to YouTube. You know, if you want to know what's happening, because really, I mean, if you look at their numbers, and I talked about this recently, if you look at the numbers, between say like a CNN and a Fox News, Fox News skews right hard, and they get respect from their right-wing audience, right? CNN tries to thread the needle on the center of everything, and no one respects them, and they're hemorrhaging their audience, and it is, you know, that I think is a product of the fact that we have people who are still in Congress that have been there for decades, who are in power only because they are in power, essentially power breeding more power. And, you know, I think we need to genuinely look into who needs to be primaried in 2026 and, who, you know, where new blood needs to come into the Democratic Party. Because if we continue to have people like, you know, Nancy Pelosi playing Speaker Emerita or whatever the fuck that is, and, you know, pretending to be in charge of a ship that they completely set on fire, and like expecting our respect and our support without, you know, speaking to anything that is actually important or doing anything that is actually important to the very people that they claim to want the respect of and the votes of. It's just, you know, because I believe you can't continue to go on in this way, where we have this sort of ossified system of leadership in the Democratic Party, where it continues to just, you know, focus only on one thing, really just moneyed interests and making sure that they get enough donors for the next election to keep themselves in power and not do anything again. Because that is often what I hear, essentially. And it's very frustrating to me. In between elections is to talk about how we need to get, you know, we got to get looking forward again to the next election so we can beat them this time, right? But the fact is we can't just be placated by the idea of winning if winning doesn't actually get you anything. The last 4 years kind of shows just how real that is, you know? Democrats didn't technically have a supermajority, but they did have majorities going into the midterms and could have done all sorts of important stuff after Joe Biden got elected. Didn't though. They didn't really get those things passed. Waited until they lost those majorities to try and push on things when they no longer had the levers necessary to do so. And you can't keep claiming, you know, that you're just one win away from victory if when after winning you don't actually get all the things done that you're touting to, or that you're intending to, supposedly. winning is the end in itself for the Republicans. I mean, the fact is that has worked well for Republicans, right? If you look at it, whenever Republicans get elected, they rush the paint. They rush the paint every time they get elected and try and get shit done. They start nominating. They start, they start talking to justices. They start talking to all these, different people. How do we make this up? I mean, look at the way the Trump administration is coming into this one. I mean, it's more so than it ever has been. But I guess my point is the Republicans keep getting stuff done for the people that they're supposedly working for, right? Abortion, is one of the biggest examples that comes to mind, right? But I'm not saying that it's good that they're getting these things done, but when it comes to the left, when it comes to the Democrats, when they win, we don't get what we want. That's what's killing me, right? That's what to me is the most frustrating of the whole situation. It's like Democrats need to know how to take a W and actually do something with it. And if the last 20 years proves, if the last 20 years are any evidence for us to draw from, it doesn't seem like the Democrats want to get stuff done. Once again, this is why I think we need to turn up the heat. We need to threaten primarying with more progressive candidates, things like that, or the TBD, whatever. Let's actually need to take a break. We're going to come back, talk about the government shutdown, which looks like it may be averted here, but a whole bunch of stuff happened throughout this process. I'm not sure if the Senate has yet voted. I have to look that up, but I know the House has for the third time, I guess. But, let's take a quick break. Alrighty, well, I hope you're enjoying the show so far. If you haven't already hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe. Got a lot more in store. Once you've gotten done doing those two things, do consider contributing to the Galactic News Network. Keep this here, Spacecast, alive. All sorts of great ways for you to do that: YouTube, Twitch, Cash App, PayPal, and of course Patreon, where you can get the most benefits for your space dollars. Link is just in my bio. Nightbot has given up on working. Given up for us here. All right, chat. Well, enjoy the space break. I'll be right back. Okay. All right. I just realized I was muted, but we are starting the second half. It is time. And let's talk about the rest of the U.S. politics stuff we got going on. We got a whole lot of crap to look through here. Before we get to the shutdown, which we will talk about, which looks like it will most likely be averted. Let's talk about Trump's war on the press.
Illegal.
This news is funded by viewers like you. Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. We end today's show looking at Donald Trump's renewed war on the press, which he's often called the enemy of the people. And in one recent rally, he talked about how someone could shoot through the press. On Monday, the president-elect sued the Des Moines Register. Parent company is Gannett, and the pollster Ann Seltzer for publishing a poll just before the election that showed Trump trailing Harris in Iowa. Well, Trump ended up easily winning the state. He's now accusing the paper of committing, quote, brazen election interference, unquote. Trump laid out his plans to target the Des Moines Register and other news outlets during a news conference Monday at Mar-a-Lago.
And I feel I have to do this. I shouldn't really be the one to do it. It should have been the Justice Department or somebody else, but I have to do it. It costs a lot of money to do it, but we have to straighten out the press. Our press is very
to straighten them out.
Almost as corrupt as our elections.
Trump's lawsuit against the Des Moines Register came just days after ABC News, which is owned by Disney, settled a defamation suit filed by Trump. The network agreed to donate $15 million to Trump's presidential library and pay $1 million in legal fees to Trump's lawyer. Trump sued the network after ABC anchor George Stephanopoulos said Trump was found liable for rape in a 2023 civil case in Manhattan brought by writer E. Jean Carroll. ABC's been widely criticized for agreeing to settle instead of going to court to fight what many believed to be a winnable case. The prominent attorney, Mark Elias, responded to the settlement by writing, knee-bent, ring-kissed. Another legacy news outlet chooses obedience, unquote. The New York Times is reporting Trump and his allies are threatening to file more defamation lawsuits in an attempt to crack down.
And not the only ones. I mean, of course, Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, forced the Washington Post editorial board not to release an endorsement for president. It's getting out of control, and he wants it. When he talks about corrupt, I don't even know what he means. It's just I think he just doesn't want any more criticism of him ever again. And that would be good. That would be it. That was the problem all along, apparently, right?
On unfavorable media coverage. Trump has also picked Kash Patel to head the FBI. Patel has a record of threatening to go after journalists. We're joined now by Chris Lehman, D.C. bureau chief for The Nation. His latest piece is headlined, Trump's attack on the free press is just getting started. Chris, start off with the Des Moines Register suit and then move on to ABC. What's happening here?
Well, what's happening is a very clear pattern in Trump's public life. It actually well antedates his rise to political power. He made a practice of frequently going after journalists for defamation. He famously sued one of his biographers who wrote in his this biography that Trump did not qualify as a billionaire. And in his subsequent deposition, Trump basically said he was a billionaire because he felt like a billionaire.
Oh.
I
am a billionaire too. I feel very billionaire-ish.
Because he felt like a billionaire. This is a long-standing pattern of just intimidation of the press, and Trump was very open as a private business person that was his aim. He wanted.
In a way, Donald Trump is the truest and most, just shining example, the epitome of fake it till you make it, literally pretending to be a billionaire to his own biographer. And throughout all of these years, continuing to claim it until he finally became a billionaire, which he is technically now that he owns the majority stake in Donald Trump Media, DJT, which is now a multi-billion-dollar company, making him an actual billionaire finally.
To exert a chilling effect on people doing critical reporting from him. Now,
one of our chat, Bob is well, we better get you that money because you deserve it. You feel if you feel like a trillionaire, then you are a trillionaire, and reality should represent how you feel right now
he has
in this moment.
Awesome power, the federal government behind him, or prospectively behind him, and ABC disgracefully capitulated right away, and the Des Moines Register suit is a clear augur of what's lying ahead. At the Mar-a-Lago conference you mentioned, Trump also threatened to sue Washington Post reporter Bob Woodward, the Pulitzer Peace Prize committee for these, alleged offenses against basically Trump's bottomless vanity. So by capitulating, sort of preemptively the way ABC has, this news organization has set the stage for a torrent of similar suits like this. Trump will end his henchmen like Kash Patel. Also, Pete Hegseth has threatened a defamation suit against the person alleging sexual assault against him. This will be a prime MO of the second Trump administration, and it's very worrisome that even before Trump takes office, ABC is without cause, giving in. It sends a very distressing signal. In point of fact, what George Stephanopoulos said on the air was just a paraphrase of what the judge in the E. Jean Carroll case said. He said that even though Trump's conduct in the case did not rise to the strict definition of rape under New York law, any common sense understanding of rape suggests that Trump did in fact commit that act. So
the judge said that.
The judge in the case. So this was not George Stephanopoulos just randomly popping off on the air. It was a documented claim.
And Chris, I wanted to ask you, in the Des Moines Register lawsuit, Trump is alleging consumer fraud by the Des Moines Register as a weapon. Could you talk about that particularly, and also the impact on these media companies, of many of which tend to want to settle just to get rid of a lawsuit?
Right. Yeah, the fraud charge is, as far as I know, has no legal basis. You can't, just say because a pollster got something wrong, there's some deliberate intent to mislead.
How dare you?
It's a plainly frivolous suit, but
how dare you get a poll wrong? Now, one interesting thing about that is that polls are always wrong. You know how I know that? Because all political polls include a margin of error. They assume error every time they poll because they're not polling literally every person. So it's impossible to claim without evidence just because you didn't like what you see that somebody has committed a crime by you having poll results which are wrong. It's insane. There's never been a poll, essentially, that didn't have a margin of error. But I mean, this is what we probably should be expecting for the next 4 years, is for the Donald Trump administration to go after different organizations that they don't like, who may have written stories, who may have done polls, people who may have made accusations. They're going to go after. They're going to go after them. I don't see why they wouldn't. They've as much as been saying it all along. I don't know what would change it now. And of course, in real life, Donald Trump has, of course, attempted to litigate against as many people as possible at all times. It seems like he's not fulfilled in life unless he has some sort of lawsuit open against somebody. Okay. Oh wait, I gotta change this. Sorry, everybody. I gotta do a thing. Open up this window. Why don't I have Why don't I have just a sitting here? So stupid. It's all my fault.
I made a huge, tiny mistake.
Okay, now, where are we? Oh, let's quickly talk about this, as it's pretty recent news in the last couple of days, so you may not have heard. But the Federal Reserve decided on Wednesday that they were going to lower the federal funds rate by 1/4 point, bringing it down to 4.25 to 4.5 points. But does that have implications for you? Let's talk about that a little bit. Oh my god, I forgot about this video, actually. This is a completely new video. We watched a video about this yesterday. This is a completely different conversation, and actually, part of this goes completely off rails. They start talking about a bunch of other shit. But at the end, it gets...
Well, 2024 was
it gets hilarious. I'm not going to lie. I can't... Just hold on. All right, here we go. CBS. How sticky inflation and Fed rate cuts impact Americans' wallets. Let's find out.
Well, 2024 was a departure from the high inflation numbers of just 2 years ago, but the fight against rising prices is not over yet. The Federal Reserve wants to see inflation reach an annual rate of 2%. The closest it got was 2.4% in September, and it's remained fairly stagnant since then. So let's go ahead and bring in CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady to look back at some of the biggest economic and business stories of the year. Kelly, always good to see you.
Let's get to it, Kelly.
So we're still in this moment of sticky inflation. We saw the Fed cut rates 3 times in a row. What has all this meant for Americans' wallets?
Okay, so good and bad, right? So with those 3 rate cuts, we've actually seen interest rates come down a full point this year. And that means that small businesses were able to get cheaper loans.
I don't know what she's talking about. A full point of what? She's just talking about the Fed funds rate. There's very few businesses who are borrowing at the Fed funds rate. I would point that out. The way she's framing this is hilarious. Your average, small business is not borrowing money directly from the Fed.
Mortgage rates came down a little bit. Credit card interest rates came down some. Wages have also been growing faster than inflation. That's what we want to see. That's going to provide relief. But as you said, we are starting to see inflation tick back up a little bit. So I would say we are in a good spot right now, but it's a very delicate balance as we move forward.
It was also a record year for the stock market. What were some of the big gains on Wall Street?
Okay, yeah, this was huge, and it's really driven by interest rates and the Trump trade. So let's just run through the numbers. The Dow, as of now, has gained over 12%. The S&P.
Okay, now hold on. All right, so she's claiming that interest rates have come down somewhat. I think she's wrong. Hold on, let me look at this, actually. I could be wrong on this, and I'm willing to be wrong. They were certainly going up into 2024. try and find a graph on this. I don't think they have gone down. I'm not seeing that. I don't know where she's getting her data from. That's not what I'm seeing here. They appear to be at all-time highs. But regardless of that, you know what? Your mortgage rates certainly aren't going to be going down. Unfortunately, even with the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates, they doesn't directly cut your mortgage rate. First off, if you're on a fixed rate, you would have to refinance to get a lower rate. So it would really apply to people who are either refinancing or buying a new home, getting into a new loan. But right now, mortgage rates are not going down because the 30-year Treasury rate is continuing to go up, which is essentially what the mortgage rate is tied to. It's basically they calculate something and they're like, okay, it's based upon the 30. I don't know the calculation that the banks are like the the underwriters are using, but essentially it's the 30-year rate plus whatever the bank wants to make on top of that, right? Whatever the bank needs, quote unquote, to make this this loan profitable for them and lowest risk possible. That's what they're going to do. So it's, you know, the current, I don't know, what's the current mortgage rate? I know 30 years are what, 4.7? Yeah, 4.7. 30-year mortgage rates. Currently, fixed rate on a 30-year is going to be around 7%. So not quite double what the 30-year Treasury bond would get you. Right. So the claim that these rates are going to directly cause your personal loans to go down is dubious. All right. Hold on. Sorry. I'm trying to remember where this spot is where she just goes off the rails.
Delayed and delayed even further, right? Are they ever coming back? The stock I checked is down near 30% this year. They did, however, just get a very big customer, major orders for one of their planes. So they are a little bit on the upswing this year. I think for them, they need to rebuild trust. They need to get past all of these safety investigations with flying colors. The good news is it is a duopoly. Their only competitor really is Airbus. So if they are able to rebuild that trust, you know, people will be buying their planes.
I have less than a minute with you, but obviously.
I'm sorry, but that broke me the first time, and it broke me again the second time hearing it. It is insane. Let's just listen to that one more time. What is she thankful for?
Colors. The good news is it is a duopoly.
Oh,
Their
good
only
news.
competitor really is Airbus. So if they are.
Did you hear that? This woman is sick. This woman has a sickness. Okay. This is why I don't. We've heard her a number of times say things that I find just utterly shocking and fascinating. Not just in this piece, but in the past. But this one really takes the cake. Good news, everybody! It's a duopoly. Hey, yay! It's almost a monopoly, which would be even better for. Oh my god, that is hilarious. Good news, everybody. Oligarchy still functioning. Boeing stock still going up. They can't buy planes from anybody else, thankfully. For them and them only, and if you own a whole bunch of Boeing stock, and only then. Certainly not if you're flying on planes. Jesus Christ. That broke me when I heard it earlier today. And I was listening. I was like, I just sat there for a while. I was like walking around space station, standing in my teeny tiny living room, saying it to myself over and over again. Good news, it's a duopoly. You know, washing my hands. Good news, it's a duopoly. You know, sipping some tea thinking to myself, good news. It's a duopoly. Just kind of poring over what that sentence even means. Okay. Let's go to a place, a channel on YouTube that makes way more sense than CBS, at least on a regular basis. You can consistently count on a little bit more sense.
What we're going to be trying to do is exploit cracks in the Republican Party and in the administration. Right now, we're seeing a little bit of that dysfunction manifest, and Donald Trump is not president yet. Apparently, he's kind of in the running more for vice president, though. I saw Adam Kinzinger say this on TV. Unfortunately, you got to hand it to him here. It's a little clever. Calling Trump vice president and calling Elon Musk president, that might be a good way to get to Donald Trump's ego and cause dysfunction between the two men, which is something I think that I would like to see. But for right now, he seems joined at the hip with Elon Musk, who, as a reminder, is the richest person on the planet. So Trump does need him to a degree, especially the threats that mob enforcer Elon Musk is able to back up, which is that if you don't go with everything I say and you don't abide by my wishes, we are going to use Elon Musk's vast fortune to primary you.
Follow the rich white man.
Oddly, you had Donald Trump this morning saying that we should abolish the debt ceiling. We have this tweet.
Illegal.
It makes no sense. Like, his mind is gone, and then also there's just real no ideological consistency. He told NBC News that he doesn't want to just lift the debt ceiling.
My brain
He's keen
is a
to get
neural
rid of
network.
it, saying, quote, the Democrats have said they want to get rid of it. If they want to get rid of it, I would lead the charge. I'm not sure if that's true. I don't think that's going to happen, but
I'm sorry. I know
that
there's
would
a
be
lot
great.
of people that don't want any sort of like yes ending of the president, and I accept like the caution on that. But when he says stuff like that, it is time to say, okay, yes, get rid of this stupid thing, and let's never have to deal with this crap again.
Elizabeth Warren was saying, hey, I agree with this.
Yeah,
We
let's
can
get on
work
board with
this.
that.
But it's
Hey.
a little bit in conflict with the
more
stated
debt ceiling?
purpose of DOGE.
Won't need any more of
the
these
Department
continuing
of
resolutions to
Government
fund the
Efficiency.
government? Great.
A joke that was tired like 6 years ago or something.
I mean,
reinvigorate.
because if it's not clear to anybody here listening for whatever reason, that is literally the reason why these continuing resolutions have to happen. If the debt ceiling didn't exist, the government could fund itself without having to have appropriations voted on every single time that they want to keep the government open.
By the least funny or charismatic man on the planet, Elon Musk, because at the same time, they're supposed to be cutting everything for supposed efficiency. That's what makes no sense here. Here's Elon Musk's post on Twitter threatening anybody who votes for the continuing resolution that would keep the government open through March, because it includes around $100 billion for natural disaster relief funding, and that's what they're all upset about.
You know, now this shouldn't exist, but when I see this kind of stuff, it really makes me wish we had somebody on the actual left with the same sort of power over our government, or at least over elections. I don't know. I mean, because the thing is, if we didn't have money in our elections, we wouldn't have to worry about it like this. If we got rid of lobbyists and things like that, got money out of politics, this wouldn't be a problem, right? But when I see stuff like this, I'm like, God damn, why isn't there somebody gatekeeping on the left with billions of dollars? Oh, right, because people on the left tend to have ethics and things like that. They get in the way of amassing sums of wealth like that.
Even though Donald Trump is at the same time saying that we should abolish the debt ceiling, it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
But as I said earlier, it seems like Mike Johnson's in a bit of a pickle because the deadline is Friday for government funding. So he's going to have to send this to the House Rules Committee. Now, Chip Roy is on the House Rules Committee, and here he is, I guess yesterday, on Glenn Beck's program talking about the continuing resolution and how it runs afoul of our stated purpose, which is Doge.
This is the problem, right? You've got, and to back up, because we can go through one by one, but the real issue here that's being exposed, you saw Elon tweeted out last night about this, because this bill is contrary to the very existence of Doge. But keep in mind,
contrary.
Remember 2 weeks ago when Elon and Vivek came in to address the conference, you've got all of these Republicans flocking to the microphone to basically kiss the feet and kiss the ring and say, oh, thank you, thanks for being, oh, you're so great. You've got people who are no champions of conservatism who are joining caucuses and going out and saying, I'm going to be the leader on Doge. Why? Because they know the American people are sick of all the garbage and they want cover. They want to hide. But here's the thing. The emperor has no clothes. There's nowhere to hide. You've got a bill like this.
What does that even mean?
Honestly, for whatever you want to say about the speaker and any disappointment about what we're dealing with, and there's plenty to discuss as we go through all this, it is also a reflection of the conference itself. Okay? In other words, when I went in front of the conference that day, 2 weeks ago, when Vivek and Elon were here, and I said at the microphone, I said, guys, I'm glad you're here. We need to empower the president with empowerment so he can cut spending. I think it's constitutional to do so. Vivek agreed. We're all talking about it. But I said, here's the thing. You guys, all of the people here at the mic, you guys have been, you, Elon, Vivek, you're looking for the problem. You're looking for the enemy, and it's right here in front of you.
Okay. Wow, says Glenn.
The enemy is the existence of the United States government. As true conservatives, we must pledge to put ourselves out of a job.
So who's kissing the ring here, Chip Roy? Because this is a very, very standard continuing resolution, and given the margins that Mike Johnson is operating with, especially because Donald Trump has appointed multiple Republican members of the House to his committees, like, they're going to be basically with a 2-vote majority until April. You're screwed if you don't pass this continuing resolution. Because the Democrats, it doesn't seem like, thankfully, they're going to agree to this as of right now. But you're the one doing the sucking up by even giving credibility to this non-government agency that has not been confirmed by Congress, and it's essentially two rich guys calling the shots. And we're supposed to say that this is democratic and populist and responsive to the people? It's just handing.
What's non-populist about the richest man on planet Earth getting his own governmental institution from a guy he just gave $250 million to? I'm struggling to see the problem. What's not populist about that? To have a literal... the king's agency. That all checks out to me, I think.
Our government over to the richest guy on the planet. And frankly, I think it's a bit clarifying. The people that are sucking up include someone like Rand Paul. This is what he tweeted the other day.
Paul.
Bradley. Rand Paul. The Speaker of the House need not be a member of Congress. Nothing would disrupt the swamp more than electing Elon Musk. Think about it. Yeah. Nothing's impossible, not to mention the joy at seeing the collective establishment, aka Uniparty, lose their ever-loving minds. Oh yeah, Rand Paul, fighting for the people of Kentucky by making the wealthiest man on the planet the Speaker of the House. Honestly, go for it.
Yeah, do it.
I mean, it's fair. I mean, sometimes you gotta replace the swamp with a Tesla-branded desert. You know? And that'll solve things, right? Right? No problem with that one.
Like, we can dispense once and for all that these people are any kind of this richest man in the world who's a giant government contractor also works alongside other foreign governments and, you know, pulls certain punches on, say, free speech to do so. Let's see him, you know, just be in charge of the House of Representatives.
It is, I mean, honestly, he is one of the biggest government contractors. He receives money from the federal government. Tesla, he made his fortune with the benefit of having
$1 billion loan.
Subsidies from the federal government, and now with his other ventures, he is heavily subsidized by the federal government. So for them to come in and talk about efficiency, give me a break. I can guarantee you that whatever they cut...
You know, I'm pretty sure that whenever Elon Musk talks about efficiency as it relates to Doge, he's actually talking about a system of efficiency for funneling funds to his bank account, right? Because usually it has to go through his companies. But I'm sure he'll figure out a way, and actually it'll be cheaper for the American people, right? Think about this, okay? Because right now, you know, we're having to, you know, worry about, you know, regulating like Tesla, and worrying about regulating SpaceX, or worrying about regulating, you know, any of his other sorts of little ventures and things like that. And there's a lot of time invested in that. And, you know, keeping the lights on energy wise, it's all unnecessary. We could just be, instead of, you know, sending billions of dollars to his different companies for different, you know, government contracts, could just shut down all of those companies and just send the money straight to his bank account. It'll be better for society. It'll be quicker. We'll have more time to focus on other stuff.
Or trying to cut doesn't do anything except enrich the people that are involved here. And it's on your backs. It's your taxpayer money that is going towards these freaks. And then the stuff that they're going to cut is going to be what helps people. So they're all up in arms and trying to shut down the government over $100 billion, which is really nothing when you look at the government budget, to help people who were victimized by disasters.
And I want to make one thing. Elon, he was tweeting like a manic person yesterday about this. Tweeted about Congress having a pay raise. Shut up about Congress getting more pay from public sources than private, okay?
Oh, yeah.
There's people that like to think about this. Ooh, maybe we shouldn't pay Congress more. And I understand, because I hate Congress. You have to look at these the way that a billionaire like Elon Musk looks at it, which is the more that they get from their function as civil servants,
yeah,
the less that the donor money matters and the revolving door stuff matters. This is just, and I see people being like, well, I don't know. Billionaires know, okay? History knows. LBJ in the Robert Carroll books, that was a thing. It's not only do congressional representatives need more pay, their staffers do. They need more money to pay staffers.
Yeah.
So that those staffers don't need to look to private industry. So anytime they need a pay raise, I think it's fine.
Let's double our...
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. I think I can be a little cynical about them because of, you know, my personal feelings about the job they may be doing. But it's a strong point, right? If they had less incentive to take money from private institutions, maybe we get money out of politics even faster. Maybe we get some of those things done that we want to get done. It is it's a strong argument.
Members of Congress and senators. I'm not even joking.
Texas has this issue where it's like they only meet so many times. The pay is extremely low. So if you want to be a teacher and actually you can't afford it, you need to be a rich person to do it. So people just like think about it in a broader sense than just your initial knee-jerk reaction to what Congress people deserve, and think about why the richest man in the world doesn't want them to have a pay raise. It's because he wants them to be more like
more leverage over them.
Yeah, and Jared Golden, who's a Democrat from Maine, one of the most conservative Democrats in the country, he like specifically was like, I don't support the continuing resolution because of the pay raise, and it's like that's as Matt's saying, that's a literally
because I got sugar daddies,
right? That's a sop to being like, there should be an income floor basically, or ceiling basically, because I want to be more be able to be captured by rich people than if I could actually just have an independent income as just a legislator.
That's the aesthetic of right-wing populism for you. It's pretending like they're delivering for you when in fact they're actually making it easier for private interests to have.
You know what? I think I've just come up with the best.
Hopefully we can have some.
I think I've just come up with the best way to frame this, because this really truly puts this all in perspective. Okay, just consider this for one tiny just moment. Okay. I did the math, right? To give all of Congress and the Senate a raise of $50,000 a year would be roughly $32 million, right, per year. And that sounds like a shit ton of money. But to put that all into perspective, consider the cost of an F-35, something which Congress is constantly approving the building and sending of to the Middle East and other places, even when we don't want them to. One single F-35 aircraft cost around $82.5 million. So, for 1/3 the cost of one F-35, we could maybe improve the future of our democracy. That actually, to me, seems very reasonable when I think of it like that. I think we can get rid of one F-35 and pay Congress a little bit more, and hope that that will somehow disincentivize their taking more money from private organizations with nefarious ideologies. And how many? Hold on. Let me just look at this. How many? I just have to know now. So we, just for context, we've given Israel about 50. We signed a contract to provide 50 of those things. So we could just send them one less. I'm not sure how that'll be all paid out, but just saying, it's one option. All right, now let's kind of like go over how this whole government shutdown happened. Start off here. It's been fascinating so far.
President-elect Donald Trump has abruptly rejected a bipartisan plan to prevent a Christmas-time government shutdown. Instead, he's telling House Speaker Mike Johnson and Republicans to essentially renegotiate, days before a deadline when federal funding runs out. Trump's sudden decision on Wednesday to make new demands sent Congress spiraling as lawmakers are trying to wrap up work and head home for the holiday.
Yeah, and everybody was expecting that to go off without a hitch. There had been bipartisan agreements made over weeks and weeks of time. Mike Johnson had been running his tiny little legs up and down the Congress hallways trying to get this thing passed, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, Donald Trump tweeting that no good. Of course, Elon Musk was also tweeting at the same time. He was not a fan. That was 2 days ago. Wait, where is this? Is in the wrong order.
And we can begin moving in that direction by rejecting and voting no on a $900 billion.
This was before the this was before the whole thing. This was Bernie Sanders telling everybody to not vote for the military budget. Like, I don't know why this is in this order, so we're gonna watch that later. Just go here now. This was yesterday.
Gentlewoman's recognized.
I yield.
Gentleman reserves.
I yield 30
Gentlewoman's
seconds
recognized.
to the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Cohen.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you. There are a lot of things in here that were taken out of the compromise bill that were good for the American people. And one of the things was dish payments, where you give money to hospitals to treat the least among us, the poorest people that need health care, and that was taken out of the bill. That's cruel, inhuman, and anti-Judeo-Christian. And that's one of the main reasons why I oppose this bill, because the hospitals that take care of those people are doing God's work, and they need to be given the monies they've been given in the past, a 1-year extension.
Yep. So this was in response. So this, like I said, this was yesterday. This was in response to the new spending bill, which Republicans came out with, which basically gutted as much stuff that took care of people as they possibly could. Many things that had already been negotiated on, like we were talking about. Stephen Cohen here came out against that. Now, let's go here. This was a Republican, Anna Paulina.
The chair would remind my colleagues to direct comments to the chair.
Wait, no, actually, I don't think she's
Gentleman
Republican.
from Oklahoma.
Is she Republican? Hold on. I can't remember now.
Recognized.
Thank you very much,
My brain is
Mr.
broken.
Speaker, I yield to my good friend, the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Luna, for 2 minutes.
The gentlewoman from Florida is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I've never actually voted for a CR, but I'm here today because I realize that the plan that's on the table currently to keep our government open, but also the promise from the only president in my lifetime who's ever followed through on all of his campaign promises.
All of his campaign promises.
Excuse me, I'm not done talking.
Yeah, but you can't expect people not to laugh at you for that, Anna. Yeah, okay, now I remember. Now I remember this one. There were so many of these statements I was going through. Oh my God. Donald Trump followed through on every one of his campaign promises. Come on, Anna. Even you know that's not true.
Give me the same respect we give you guys.
The House will come to order. My colleagues are reminded the gentlewoman has the floor. She has the right to be heard. The gentlewoman has the right to be heard, and the gentlewoman would be reminded to direct her comments to the chair. The gentlewoman from Florida is recognized.
From the only president in my lifetime who's fulfilled all of his campaign promises to the American
Doubling
people,
down on that one,
has
huh?
promised to cut hundreds of $billions in reconciliation. You want to talk about shutting down the government. The deal that was negotiated was largely rejected by the American people, which, to Speaker Johnson's credit, pulled it from the floor, which is why we are here today. The deal on the table will keep the government open for the American people.
Yes, of course, the American people don't want their government to work. That's what they voted for. What?
What you talking about?
You're very strange, Anna. You're not making a lot of sense right now. I've never heard from you until this day. And I'm starting to realize why. Because you're saying very stupid things.
If you guys so choose to shut it down, it will be on you, but not the Republican Party. We will not be going back to the table. This deal stands as it is, so let you go back home on Christmas and explain to your people why you shut down the government, because we won't be doing it.
Oh, it's Democrats' fault for not accepting the hastily thrown together bill in a evening cocktail session between Elon Musk and, I don't know, a group of chortling billionaires. Oh, let's go here. Because you know what? Unfortunately, that bill didn't pass. Here's Mike Johnson to tell us about how sad that was for him. Is this the right one?
On this vote, the yeas are 174, the nays are 235, one voting present, 2/3 not being in the affirmative. The rules are not suspended and the bill is not passed.
Very disappointing to us that all but 2 Democrats voted against aid to farmers and ranchers, against disaster relief, against all these bipartisan measures that had already been negotiated and decided upon. Again, the only difference on this legislation was that we would push the debt ceiling to January of 2027.
We are in favor of every request that you asked for. These were modest agreements that were reached and rendered by both parties in an honest and public agreement. The Speaker of the House broke his word. That's why we're here.
What's the next step?
We will regroup and we will come up with another solution. So stay tuned.
Will you drop the debt limit demand? Will you drop the debt limit?
Hold on. What's this next one? Oh, this was Donald Trump 9 hours ago. Wait, nope, wrong one.
Evening, everybody.
This was Mike Johnson's whole speech. I don't think we need to listen to Mike Johnson's whole speech on this. Let's go to Donald Trump now. This was just earlier today.
Time is running short to avert a government shutdown. The House resoundingly rejected President-elect Donald Trump's new plan to fund federal operations and suspend the debt ceiling Thursday night, a day before a government shutdown. In fact, more than 36 Republicans joined Democrats in voting down.
Oh, here it is. Let's get past Chip.
Absolutely ridiculous.
So ridiculous,
Now Trump's
Chip.
doubling down on his insistence that a debt ceiling increase be included in any deal. And if not, let the closures, quote, start now. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is calling on House Speaker Mike Johnson to return to the stopgap funding agreement he had negotiated with Democrats.
Mr. President, if Republicans do not work with Democrats in a bipartisan way very soon, the government will shut down at midnight. It's time to go back to the original agreement we had just a few days ago.
Trump and billionaire ally Elon Musk unleashed their opposition and social media army on the first bipartisan plan Johnson presented that did not address the debt ceiling situation.
Now, unfortunately, the new bill did not remove the debt ceiling. Sadly. But there was a closed-door Republican meeting not 6 hours ago to create a new a continuing resolution, a third one, in 48 hours.
I think we came together. I think Speaker Johnson did a great job come the end of the day. I think that
That sounds very, very sexy.
phrasing.
Let's hear that again. What was that? What? What happened?
I think we came together.
Oh, yeah.
I think Speaker Johnson did a great job come the end of the day. I think that
He was the last one to come came at the end of the day, huh? Okay.
and which is crucial to our leadership and to our executing the America First agenda. And I think we'll see a vote coming up, and hopefully it's a successful vote that we finish up and we pass the CR. We avoid Republicans avoid a shutdown, and we.
Oh God. Not gonna be a child.
Agreements with the White House on handling things such as the important debt limit in a good faith pledge and plan that we will execute in line with the White House's wishes.
The debt issue, which was put on us by President Trump, was dealt with. It's not in statute. It's just a pretty much a handshake deal. 1.5 raising of the debt, but 2.5 in cuts agreed to.
So I'm pleased to where we got to today. Wish we'd have gotten there
Oh,
last
actually,
week.
I didn't quite hear that. It sounds like they raised the debt limit. Well, they didn't get rid of the debt limit. So it's not completely gone. It's just raised. Slightly more, I think, maybe? It's confusing. It wasn't quite clear. I'd have to look at the numbers to understand exactly what that all meant. He was speaking a little cryptically.
The week before, but you know what? That's, deadlines always have a way of helping us get things done, and unfortunately.
Oh, it's Democrats' fault.
I think we'll be able to get out of here
I love that. I love that. Still, even though there was already an agreement reached between Republicans and Democrats, now the Democrats declined a second one that they came up with on the fly. He's upset that they got to go back in and maybe redraw things a third time. It's all Democrats' fault, though, of course. No, they didn't raise the debt ceiling. No, I'm not shocked to actually hear that. It's just hilarious to hear them suggest that they solved the debt ceiling suddenly. Just, you know, it's a lot of just pure sort of lies coming out of this closed door meeting from Republicans. My guess is that they basically went in and pulled out the one from earlier from the trash that Elon Musk was trying to light on fire. Stop him from lighting it on fire, and then bring that back to the to the floor and try and get that passed. That's my guess. That it released a very near semblance of that. I know they're making a bunch of wild claims over here, but that's because they're hoping you're not going to read it. That's my guess. Oh yeah. So let's go here. C-SPAN from 1 hour after that back hallway AP report there. The House passed that continuing resolution to fund the government. 366 to 34.
On this vote, the ayes are 366.
Looks like 196 votes yes from Democrats, 1 present, and 14 no votes. 170 yeses from Republicans, 34 nays. We could probably start guessing who these 34 are. And then 15 no votes. I wonder who the 1 present vote is from Democrats is. Should look into that. But yeah, that passed, and then about like 45 minutes ago, or slightly later, I think earlier, because I think they had to finish it before midnight. But the story didn't come out until 45 minutes ago. I couldn't find an earlier one actually saying it, but turns out Senate finally got it done, passed that government resolution, so the government will continue to be funded for another 84 days, I think. So great job. Continuing the U.S. government 84 days at a time. Great job.
This news is funded by viewers
at your leisure. You will be continuing